My name is Isabella Chen, and I thought I was living a fairy tale. At 25, I was engaged to Marcus Wellington, heir to one of Chicago's most prestigious real estate empires. The Wellington family owned half the Gold Coast, and their mansion on Lakeshore Drive was the stuff of architectural magazines. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. What I didn't know was that I was about to become the star of the cruelest performance of my life. It started 3 weeks before our wedding. Marcus called me into his study, his usually warm brown eyes now cold as winter lake water. "Isabella, darling," he said, not looking up from his mahogany desk. "I need you to do something for me." "Of course, anything," I replied, still believing in the love I thought we shared. He slid a black uniform across the desk, a maid's uniform. "My business partners are coming for dinner tomorrow. They're old-fashioned, conservative types who believe women should know their place. I need you to pretend to be our maid." My heart stopped. "Excuse me? Just for the evening. Serve dinner. Clean up. Stay quiet. It's crucial for this deal. Isabella, we're talking about a $50 million development project." I stared at the uniform, my hands trembling. "Marcus, I'm your fiancé. I have a master's degree in architecture. I can't." "You can and you will," his voice turned sharp. "Unless you want to explain to your sick mother why her medical bills suddenly can't be paid anymore." The threat hit like a physical blow. My mother's cancer treatments were expensive, and Marcus had been covering them for months. I was trapped. That night, I put on the uniform. The black dress with white apron made me feel like I was disappearing into myself. When the guests arrived, I became invisible, serving wine, clearing plates, listening to them discuss business while completely ignoring my existence. But the worst part, Marcus didn't just ignore me, he was cruel. "Girl, you missed a spot on that glass," he snapped when I served his drink. "The soup is cold. Take it back," he commanded, though I'd just bought it from the kitchen. His business partners, the Hartwell brothers, seemed amused by the display. "You've got your help well trained, Wellington," one of them chuckled. That single evening stretched into weeks. Every time Marcus had business associates over, I became the maid. He moved me out of our shared bedroom and into a small servant's quarters in the basement. My engagement ring disappeared into a jewelry box, replaced by a simple uniform and an apron. "It's just temporary," he'd say whenever I protested. "Once the Wellington Heights project is approved, everything will go back to normal." But normal never came. The project got approved, then there was another deal, another dinner, another reason why I needed to stay in character. My architecture career was put on hold indefinitely. My friends stopped calling because I was never available. I became a ghost in my own life. The breaking point came 6 months later. I was serving dinner to Marcus and his new business partner, a woman named Victoria Ashford. She was everything I used to be: confident, educated, wearing designer clothes that cost more than most people's rent. "Marcus, you really should consider getting better help," Victoria said, looking directly at me as if I were a piece of furniture. "This one seems incompetent." Marcus laughed. "Oh, don't worry about her. She's just the maid. Easily replaceable. Easily replaceable." The words echoed in my head as I cleared their plates, as I washed their dishes, as I retreated to my basement room. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I couldn't sleep. The basement room was cold, and the sound of the old mansion settling kept me awake. Around midnight, I heard footsteps upstairs, Marcus's voice, low and intimate, followed by a woman's laughter. Victoria was still there. Something twisted in my stomach. I crept up the servants' stairs, the ones I'd become intimately familiar with over the past months. The main hallway was dark, but light spilled from under Marcus's study door. I pressed my ear to the wood and heard everything I needed to know. "The wedding is in 2 weeks, Victoria was saying. "Are you really going through with this charade?" "Only until the inheritance is finalized," Marcus replied. "My grandfather's will states I need to be married to inherit the full Wellington estate. Isabella serves that purpose perfectly. She's desperate enough to stay, and stupid enough to believe I actually love her. And after we'll have a convenient accident. Maybe she'll fall down the stairs. These old mansions can be so dangerous. My blood turned to ice. Victoria laughed, a sound like breaking glass. You're terrible, Marcus. I love it. Besides, he continued, she's already signed over power of attorney to me for her mother's medical care. If anything happens to Isabella, I control everything, including her mother's life support. I backed away from the door, my heart pounding so hard I was sure they could hear it. The man I loved, the man I'd humiliated myself for, was planning to murder me. I stumbled back to my room, my mind racing. I had to get out, and I had to save myself and my mother. But how? I had no money, no resources, no proof of what I'd heard. I spent the rest of the night planning. I would leave in the morning, go to the police, tell them everything. But as dawn broke, I realized the futility of it all. Marcus Wellington was connected, powerful, rich. Who would believe a maid's word against his? I was getting dressed when I heard my phone ring. The caller ID showed my mother's hospital. Miss Chen. The voice was professional, distant. I'm calling about your mother's condition. There's been a complication. My hands shook as I held the phone. What kind of complication? Her treatment was discontinued last night. The payment authorization was revoked. I'm sorry, but without immediate funding, we can't continue her care. The phone slipped from my fingers. Marcus had made his move. My mother was dying, and he was using her life as leverage to keep me trapped. I ran upstairs, bursting into the study where Marcus sat calmly drinking coffee and reading the morning paper. You bastard, I screamed. You cut off my mother's treatment. He looked up with mild interest. I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. I heard you last night with Victoria. I know what you're planning. His expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Isabella, you're clearly having some kind of breakdown. Maybe you should sit down. I'm leaving, I said, backing toward the door. I'm going to the police. I'm going to tell them everything. No, Marcus said quietly, standing up. You're not. The next few moments happened in slow motion. Marcus moved toward me, his hand reaching for something on the desk. I turned to run, but my foot caught the edge of the Persian rug. I fell, my head striking the corner of the marble coffee table. The last thing I saw was Marcus standing over me, his face eerily calm. Accidents happen, he said softly, even to maids. Then everything went dark. I woke up in a hospital bed, but something was wrong. The room was different, brighter, more modern. A nurse in scrubs I didn't recognize was checking my IV. Where am I? I asked, my voice hoarse. Northwestern Memorial Hospital, she replied kindly. You've been unconscious for 3 days. You had a severe head injury. 3 days. My mother, was she still alive? I tried to sit up, but dizziness washed over me. Easy, the nurse said. You need to rest. The doctor will be in soon. When she left, I noticed something strange. The date on the digital clock read exactly 3 years in the past, the day I'd first met Marcus Wellington. I must have been hallucinating. Head injuries could cause confusion, memory problems. But as the hours passed, the impossible truth became clear. I was 22 again. The doctors said it was a miracle I'd survived. A construction accident at a building site. A beam had fallen and struck me, but I remembered everything. Marcus, the mansion, the humiliation, the betrayal, the murder attempt, everything that hadn't happened yet. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. When I was released from the hospital, I went straight to my small apartment, the one I'd given up to move in with Marcus. But this time, I had knowledge. I had power. I had a chance to rewrite the story. The first thing I did was research. I knew Marcus would approach me at the coffee shop on Michigan Avenue in exactly 1 week. But before then, I needed to understand the Wellington family's real financial situation. What I discovered changed everything. The Wellington empire was built on debt and deception. Marcus's grandfather had died 2 years ago, leaving behind a will that was very specific. The family fortune would only pass to a married heir, and only if that heir could prove they were worthy of the responsibility. But there was something else. Something Marcus didn't know. The Wellington mansion, the centerpiece of their empire, had been sold to pay off debts. The new owner was a shell company, hidden behind layers of legal paperwork. It took me 3 days of digging through public records to find the truth. The shell company was owned by Chen Holdings, my estranged grandfather's business empire. My grandfather, Henry Chen, had immigrated to America with nothing and built a fortune in real estate development. When my father died, we had a falling out over the business. Grandfather had always disapproved of my father's choice to become a teacher instead of joining the family company. But according to the will I found in the public records, everything was left to his only surviving heir. Me. I was the owner of the Wellington mansion, and I didn't even know it. The law offices of Morrison, Blake and Associates occupied the top floor of a gleaming tower in downtown Chicago. I sat across from Eleanor Morrison, the senior partner, as she explained the inheritance that had been waiting for me for over a year. Your grandfather's will was very specific, she said, sliding documents across the mahogany table. He left everything to you but with conditions. You had to claim the inheritance personally, and you had to prove you understood the value of hard work. I thought about the months I'd spent as Marcus's maid, the humiliation, the servitude. If only grandfather had known. The Wellington mansion was purchased through Chen Holdings 6 months ago. Eleanor continued. The previous owners defaulted on several loans. Your grandfather saw it as a sound investment. Does the current family know? They're supposed to be evicted next month. The lawyers handling the foreclosure assumed you weren't interested in claiming the property, since you hadn't responded to previous notices. I hadn't responded because I'd been living in the basement as a maid, isolated from the outside world. The irony was almost poetic. I want to claim everything, I said firmly, but I want to handle the Wellington situation personally. Eleanor raised an eyebrow. That's unusual. Most people would simply have the sheriff serve the eviction papers. I'm not most people. I spent the next 3 days learning about my grandfather's empire. Chen Holdings wasn't just wealthy, it was vast. Real estate, technology investments, manufacturing. The portfolio was worth over $200 million. But the crown jewel was the Wellington mansion itself. The 40-room estate sat on 3 acres of prime Lakeshore Drive property. Its value alone was $30 million. I was about to become one of the wealthiest women in Chicago, and Marcus Wellington had no idea. The day I was supposed to meet Marcus at the coffee shop, I made a different choice. Instead of showing up, I drove to the mansion. I parked across the street and watched the house where I'd been humiliated and nearly murdered in another timeline. Marcus emerged at exactly 2 p.m., dressed in his expensive suit, probably on his way to the coffee shop to begin his elaborate deception. He looked confident, arrogant, completely unaware that his world was about to crumble. I waited until he left, then drove to the service entrance. The housekeeper, Mrs. Rodriguez, answered the door. She was a kind woman who'd treated me with more respect during my time as a maid than Marcus ever had. Good afternoon, I said. I'm Isabella Chen. I believe there are some legal matters regarding this property that need to be discussed. Mrs. Rodriguez looked confused. I'm sorry, but Miss Wellington handles all legal matters. He's not home right now. I handed her my business card, newly printed with the Chen Holdings logo. Could you please tell him that the new owner would like to schedule a meeting? Her eyes widened. New owner. Yeah, this property belongs to Chen Holdings now. I'm here to discuss the transition. Within an hour my phone was ringing. Marcus's voice was tight with panic. Isabella, what the hell are you doing at my house? Mrs. Rodriguez said something about new ownership. Hello, Marcus, I said calmly. I think we need to talk. This is insane. You can't just show up claiming to own my family's house. We've never even met. Haven't we? I let the question hang in the air. I'll be at the mansion at 7 p.m. Please be there. I hung up before he could respond. I arrived at the mansion at exactly 7 p.m. But this time I walked through the front door. I wore my best suit, a sharp navy blue ensemble that cost more than the maid's uniform Marcus had forced me to wear in another life. Marcus was waiting in the foyer, his face a mask of confusion and anger. He looked exactly as I remembered, tall, dark-haired, with those brown eyes that had once made me feel like the luckiest woman alive. "Who are you?" he demanded. "And what is this nonsense about owning my house?" I opened my briefcase and handed him the legal document. "Isabella Chen, CEO of Chen Holdings. And this isn't your house anymore." He scanned the papers, his face growing pale. "This is impossible. My family has owned this mansion for 3 generations. Your family defaulted on multiple loans. The property was foreclosed and sold to cover the debts. My company purchased it 6 months ago." "You're lying," but his voice lacked conviction. "The eviction notice was sent to your lawyers weeks ago. You have 30 days to vacate the premises." Marcus's hands were shaking as he held the documents. "There has to be some mistake. I can pay whatever is owed. We can work something out." The debt was $12 million. "Do you have $12 million, Marcus?" His silence was answer enough. I walked past him into the main living room, the same room where I'd served drinks to his business partners while being treated like furniture. Now I was the one in control. "However," I continued, "I'm not unreasonable. I might be willing to work out an arrangement." Hope flickered in his eye. "What kind of arrangement?" "I need a caretaker for the property. Someone to maintain the grounds, handle basic housekeeping and serve guests when necessary. Room and board included, plus a small salary." Marcus's face went through several emotions: confusion, realization, then horror. "You want me to be your servant?" "I want you to understand what it means to work for a living, to be treated as less than human, to have your dignity stripped away piece by piece. This is revenge," he said quietly. "But for what? We've never met before." I smiled, an expression I'd learned from watching him manipulate me. "Haven't we? Sometimes life gives us second chances, Marcus. Sometimes we get to rewrite our stories." "You're insane." "Perhaps, but I'm also very wealthy. And you're about to be homeless. The choice is yours." Marcus chose to stay. He had no alternative. The Wellington family's other properties were mortgaged to the hilt, and his trust fund was nearly depleted. I watched him struggle with the decision, seeing the exact moment when his pride broke against the reality of his situation. "Fine," he said through gritted teeth. "But this is temporary. I'll find a way to buy the house back." "Of course you will," I agreed, knowing he wouldn't. I had Mrs. Rodriguez show Marcus to his new quarters, the same basement room where I'd been forced to live. The irony wasn't lost on me as I watched him carry his expensive luggage down the narrow servants' stairs. The next morning, I established the new rules. Marcus would be responsible for maintaining the mansion, serving guests, and handling basic housekeeping duty. He would wear a uniform, not a maid's dress but a simple black suit that marked him as staff. "Your first task," I said, handing him a list, "is to prepare the mansion for a dinner party tomorrow night. I'm hosting some business associates." Marcus looked at the list: 24 guests, 7 courses, full formal service. His face went white. "I don't know how to do any of this." "You'll learn. Mrs. Rodriguez will help you today, but tomorrow you'll be serving alone." I left him standing in the kitchen, staring at the list with the same expression of overwhelmed panic I'd felt when he first handed me that maid's uniform. The guests I'd invited were carefully chosen: Victoria Ashford, the woman who'd planned to help Marcus kill me; the Hartwell brothers who'd found my humiliation so amusing; several other business associates who'd witnessed Marcus's cruel treatment of his maid. None of them knew about the reversal of fortune. When they arrived, I greeted them in the main foyer, dressed in an elegant black cocktail dress that cost more than most people's cars. I was the picture of wealth and sophistication. "Welcome to my home," I said graciously. "I hope you'll enjoy this evening." Victoria looked around with obvious envy. "Your home? I thought this was the Wellington mansion." "It was. I purchased it recently. The previous owners had financial difficulties." The guests exchanged glances. In high society, Financial ruin was the ultimate scandal. "Where is Marcus?" asked one of the Hartwell brothers. "I haven't seen him around lately." As if summoned, Marcus appeared with a tray of champagne flutes. He moved stiffly, clearly uncomfortable in his new role. The contrast between his previous arrogance and current subservience was stark. "Marcus works for me now," I said simply. "He's proven quite adaptable." I watched the guests' reactions as understanding dawned. Some looked shocked, others amused. A few seemed almost delighted by the reversal of fortune. Victoria was the most affected. "Marcus, working as a servant." Marcus's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He couldn't afford to lose his temper. He needed this job, this roof over his head. "We all have to make a living," I said pleasantly. "Marcus has discovered he has a talent for service." Throughout the evening, I watched Marcus struggle with tasks that had once seemed so simple when I was performing them. He spilled wine, dropped plates, and couldn't remember which fork went where. The guests treated him with the same casual dismissal they'd shown me. He was furniture, invisible unless he made a mistake. But I wasn't cruel. I didn't humiliate him the way he'd humiliated me. I simply let him experience what it meant to be powerless, to be dependent on someone else's mercy. Over the following weeks, I watched Marcus adapt to his new reality. The arrogance slowly melted away, replaced by a grudging respect for the work involved in maintaining a household. He learned to cook, to clean, to serve without complaint. But more importantly, he learned to see the people around him as human beings, rather than tools for his convenience. I found him in the kitchen one evening, helping Mrs. Rodriguez with the dinner preparation. They were talking quietly, and I saw him laugh at something she said, a genuine, warm laugh I'd never heard before. "He's different," Mrs. Rodriguez told me later. "When the family lived here, he never spoke to the staff. Now he asks about my grandchildren, helps with heavy lifting. It's like he's becoming a real person." The transformation wasn't instant or complete. Marcus still had moments of his old arrogance, times when he'd forgotten his place, and spoke to me as if he were still the master of the house. But those moments became fewer and farther between. One night, about 2 months after he'd become my employee, Marcus knocked on my study door. "Come in," I called. He entered hesitantly, still wearing his serving uniform from dinner. "Miss Chen, I wanted to thank you." I looked up from my laptop, surprised. "Thank me for giving me this chance. I know I didn't deserve it, especially after." He paused, struggling with words. "I've been thinking about my life before this happened. The person I wasn't a good man. What makes you think you're a good man now?" He considered the question seriously. "I don't know if I am, but I'm trying to be better. This job, this situation, it's taught me things I never understood before, such as that dignity doesn't come from what you own or who you control. It comes from how you treat people, especially those who can't do anything for you." I studied his face, looking for signs of deception, but Marcus seemed genuinely changed. The cruel, entitled man who'd forced me to play maid was gone, replaced by someone who understood the value of honest work. "There's something else," he continued. "I've been having strange dreams, about a life I never lived, where I treated someone terribly, a woman named Isabella, who looked just like you." My heart stopped. Dreams? More like memories, but they can't be real. In them, I'm engaged to Isabella, but I force her to pretend to be my maid. I humiliate her, threaten her, even try to. He shuddered. "It's like seeing myself as a monster." I set down my laptop, my hands trembling slightly. "What do you think these dreams mean?" "I think they're showing me who I could have been, who I was becoming before I lost everything. They're a warning, or they were memories from another timeline, another life where things had gone differently." But I couldn't tell him that. "Dreams can be powerful teachers," I said instead. Marcus nodded. "I wanted you to know that I'm grateful, not just for the job, but for the chance to become someone better, someone worthy of respect." After he left, I sat in my study for a long time, thinking about revenge and redemption. I'd gotten my vengeance. Marcus had experienced the humiliation and powerlessness he'd inflicted on me. But somewhere along the way, something unexpected had happened. He'd actually changed. 6 months after becoming my employee, Marcus had transformed completely. He managed the household with quiet efficiency, treated the staff with respect, and served my guests with genuine professionalism. The cruel, entitled man I'd once known was gone, but Victoria Ashford wasn't finished with her schemes. She appeared at my door one evening, dressed in designer clothes and wearing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Isabella," she said, air kissing my cheek as if we were old friends. I was hoping we could talk. I invited her into the sitting room, curious about her agenda. "I have a proposition for you," she said without preamble. "I know you're enjoying your little revenge against Marcus, but he's still Wellington, even if he's temporarily down on his luck." "What's your point?" "I'm prepared to offer you $20 million for this property, cash, no questions asked. You can have your revenge money and leave Marcus to me." I raised an eyebrow. "And what would you do with Marcus?" Victoria's smile turned predatory. "Oh, I have plans for him. He owes me quite a bit from our previous arrangement. I think he'd make an excellent personal assistant." I knew what she meant. Victoria wanted Marcus as her kept man, her toy to humiliate and control. She'd seen his transformation and decided she wanted to break him again. "That's a generous offer," I said carefully, "but I'm not interested in selling." "30 million," she countered immediately. "Final offer." The desperation in her voice told me everything I needed to know. Victoria needed Marcus broken and powerless. Maybe she'd lost her own fortune and saw him as her ticket back to wealth and status. I said no. Victoria's mask slipped, revealing the viciousness underneath. "You're making a mistake. Marcus belongs with his own kind, not playing servant to some nobody who got lucky with an inheritance." "I think this conversation is over." She stood up, her composure cracking. "You can't keep him forever. He's a Wellington eventually. He'll remember what that means." After she left, I found Marcus in the kitchen, preparing my evening tea. He looked up when I entered, concern flickering in his eyes. "Is everything all right?" I heard raised voices. Victoria Ashford stopped by. His face went pale. "What did she want?" "She offered to buy the mansion. She wants you to work for her instead." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his hands still as he held the tea service. "And what did you tell her?" I told her no. Why? It was a simple question, but it carried the weight of everything that had happened between us. Why had I kept him here? Why had I turned down $30 million? Why had I chosen to give him a chance at redemption instead of simply destroying him? "Because," I said slowly, "everyone deserves a chance to become better than they were." Marcus set down the tea service and looked at me direct. "Isabella, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." My heart raced. "What? Who are you really? Not just your name, but who are you to me? These dreams I've been having, they're not just dreams, are they? I could have maintained the fiction that we were strangers, that this was all just a coincidence." But looking into his eyes, I saw something I'd never seen before. Genuine remorse, real change, the capacity for love rather than just possession. "No," I said quietly, "they're not dreams." I told Marcus everything, about our engagement, about the months of humiliation, about his plan to murder me for the inheritance, about the accident that had somehow sent me back in time to prevent it all. He listened in silence, his face growing paler with each revelation. "I don't remember the time loop," he said when I finished, "but I remember the dreams. Every cruel thing I did to you, every moment of humiliation. It felt so real because it was real. Do you believe me? I have to. It's the only explanation that makes sense." He looked at his hands, the same hands that had once struck me. "I killed you. In another timeline, I actually killed you. You tried to, but I'm here now, and you're different. Am I, or am I just playing a role the same way you played the role of Maid?" It was a fair question. How could either of us know if his transformation was genuine, or just another performance? "There's one way to find out," I said. "I'm going to give you a choice." I pulled out a legal document I'd had my lawyers prepare weeks ago. "This is a deed transfer. It gives you back ownership of the mansion, along with a trust fund worth $5 million, enough to restore your family's position in society." Marcus stared at the papers. "I don't understand." "I'm giving you back your old life, your power, your wealth, your social position, everything you lost." "Why?" "Because the man I fell in love with, the man I thought you were, would never have chosen wealth over love. The man who humiliated me and tried to kill me would take this offer without hesitation. Marcus picked up the papers, his hands shaking slightly. And if I sign this, then you'll be free. You can leave, rebuild your life, forget this ever happened. I'll disappear, and you'll never have to face the consequences of what you did in another timeline. And if I don't sign, then you stay here, as my employee, earning an honest living. No wealth, no power, no social position, just a simple life, built on respect and genuine work. Marcus was quiet for a long time, studying the document that could restore everything he'd lost. I watched him wrestle with the decision, seeing the old Marcus warring with the new one. Finally, he set the papers down and looked at me. Isabella, I need to tell you something. Over these past months, working in this house, learning to see people as human beings, instead of objects, I've fallen in love. My heart stopped. With whom? With you. Not the woman I was engaged to before, not the maid I humiliated, but you, the strong, compassionate woman, who gave me a chance to become better than I was. He pushed the papers back across the table. I don't want my old life back. I want to earn a new one. Mark, I know you can't love me, not after what I did to you, but I want to stay here, to keep working, to prove every day that I'm not the man I was before. I looked at the unsigned papers, at the man who'd chosen redemption over restoration, and felt something I hadn't expected to feel again. Hope. 1 year later, Marcus and I were married in the garden of the mansion, not the elaborate society wedding we'd planned in another timeline, but a simple ceremony, with just Mrs. Rodriguez and a few close friends. Marcus still worked as the mansion's caretaker, but now he was also my partner in running Chen Holdings. He'd discovered a talent for business, though he approached it with the humility and respect for others that his experience as a servant had taught him. Do you ever regret it? I asked him one evening, as we sat on the terrace, overlooking Lake Michigan. Choosing this life over your old one, Marcus considered the question, the same thoughtful way he approached everything now. I regret the man I was before, but I don't regret becoming the man I am now. Even though you're married to someone who technically owns you, he laughed, the warm sound carrying across the water. Isabella, you never owned me, you freed me. There's a difference. Victoria Ashford had disappeared from Chicago society after her failed attempt to buy the mansion. The Hartwell brothers had lost their own fortune in a series of bad investments. The world that had once seemed so important, the endless social climbing, the pursuit of wealth and status, had crumbled while we built something real. There's something I need to tell you, Marcus said, taking my hand. I've been having new dreams lately. What kind of dreams? Dreams about our future, about children running through this house, about growing old together, about building something meaningful, instead of just accumulating wealth. I smiled, thinking about the life we were creating together. Those sound like good dreams. They are, but Isabella, I need you to know something. If we ever had children, I would never want them to grow up privileged and entitled the way I did. I want them to understand the value of work, of treating people with respect, of earning their place in the world. We'll teach them together, I said, both of us. As the sun set over the lake, I thought about the strange journey that had brought us here, the cruelty, the humiliation, the near death that had somehow reset everything, the revenge that had become redemption. In another timeline, I'd been killed for an inheritance that I'd actually owned all along. In this timeline, I'd found something worth more than money. I'd found love rebuilt on a foundation of mutual respect and genuine change. Marcus squeezed my hand. Do you think we'll remember this when we're old? This conversation, this moment? I think we'll remember what matters. That love isn't about power or control, it's about choosing to be better for someone else. And if we forget, I smiled, thinking about the dreams that had connected us across timelines, then we'll find each other again. Some stories are too important to stay buried. The mansion behind us was filled with warmth and laughter now, a far cry from the cold, cruel place it had been. Miss Rodriguez was preparing dinner, humming a Spanish lullaby. The staff were treated like family. The rooms that had once echoed with arrogance and entitlement now rang with genuine joy. Isabella, Marcus said softly, Thank you. For seeing who I could become instead of just who I was, for giving me the chance to earn your love instead of just demanding it. I leaned against his shoulder watching the lights of Chicago twinkle to life across the water. Thank you, for becoming worth loving. And in the distance, I could swear I heard the sound of a young woman's laughter, not the hollow, mocking sound of Victoria Ashford, but the genuine joy of someone who had found her way home. Some stories end with revenge, others end with redemption. The best ones end with love that's been tested, broken, and rebuilt stronger than before. This was one of the best ones. The mansion had been transformed into something neither Marcus nor I could have imagined. We'd opened it as a training center for young people from underprivileged backgrounds, teaching them hospitality, business skills, and most importantly, the dignity that comes from honest work. Miss Rodriguez had become the program director, her natural warmth and wisdom perfect for guiding young people who'd never been given a real chance. Marcus taught business ethics and service excellence, using his own transformation as an example of how people could change. I focused on the business side, but more than that, I told the story, our story, about how power corrupts, how humility teaches, and how love can grow from the ashes of betrayal. Sometimes the greatest revenge, I would tell them, is helping someone become better than they were. The Chen Foundation, as it was now known, had helped hundreds of young people build careers. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest upload.